High above California's Owens Valley lies one of the most beautiful ridges in the Sierra Nevada. But beneath these incredible views is a history that's anything but beautiful. Between the 1860s and 1870s, a series of mysterious deaths gave this place a name it still carries today. Deadmans Pass. Located in the rugged terrain on the eastern flank of the San Joaquin Ridge, this pass was part of the immigrant route used by many prospectors, settlers, and mail carriers heading west and serving the local towns. Existing as a natural divide between the Owens Valley watershed and the San Joaquin River drainage, San Joaquin Ridge climbs well over 10,000 feet in elevation. The story begins in 1861 with two prospectors, Robert Hume and Farnsworth, searching these mountains for a lost mine. The burned and headless body of Robert Hume was found in a shallow grave not far from the eastern flank of the pass. Later, the head was located in a nearby stream, now known as Deadmans Creek. When next seen, Farnsworth told a story of a surprise Indian attack. However, an investigation proved that to be untrue, and Farnsworth disappeared before he could be arrested. Our drive starts under the shadow of the rugged Minaret mountain range. On some maps, this trail is known as the Deadmans Pass Trail. Others show it as the San Joaquin Ridge Trail. As I mentioned earlier, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, this ridge was a very common route for prospectors, miners, travelers, even mail carriers serving the local communities. They crossed through this area. The initial portion of this trail crosses over what appears to be very sandy terrain, but in reality it's really finely ground up pumice stone from the volcanic history in this area. And we'll head over to the actual western edge of the ridge here. The story of Robert Hume's murder and Farnsworth's disappearance did not end there. A few years later, the remains of two other prospectors were found near the bottom of what is now Deadman's Pass. Then, in December 1879, William Haynes, a postal worker, was reported missing during a severe winter storm while transporting mail between two of the local communities. His body and mail bags were later recovered near the bottom of what is now Deadman's Pass. As I'm driving this trail, several questions come to mind. Was Deadman's Pass simply one of the most dangerous crossings in the Sierra? Or did something else make this a haven for gruesome murders? What about that lost gold mine that Robert Hume and Farnsworth were looking for? Is there a connection between that and Deadman's Pass? Even today, people are still looking around trying to find this reported and very rich gold mine. This is considered an easy trail by off-road standards. There's a couple spots where you're crossing rocks, or some pretty exposed tree roots. But overall, as long as you have a high clearance vehicle and good tires, I think you're okay. During his travels in the Nevada Territory and in California, noted author Mark Twain was fascinated with the gold rush and the mining culture out here in the West. He had heard the stories about the lost cement mine also from prospectors and adventurers in the area. Fascinated as he was, he never explored the mine himself, but he did mention it a couple times in some of the books he wrote in later years. In the middle portion of this trail, we actually hug over a little bit closer to the western edge of the ridge, and which provides us with some very dramatic views of the minarets to the west, and then back behind us, Mammoth Mountain ski area. You'll see those spots several times throughout the remainder of this video. The Onyx app is one of the good resources to use for finding and navigating this trail. The elevation change on this trail over the approximately 2.5 miles is just almost 1,100 feet. In addition to off-road vehicles, this trail is used today by mountain bikers and hikers looking to enjoy this whole area. Exploring this area and knowing the tales that I read about it, I couldn't help but think about the book Sleepy Hollow. But unlike the legend of the Headless Horseman, the story of Deadmans Pass isn't folklore. These events really happen. What remains uncertain is exactly how, why, and who caused these events to happen and how they unfolded. As we climb higher up on this ridge, you can see how desolate this is up here, and you can imagine what it was like in the wintertime or when the wind was blowing. We were very fortunate this day that there was absolutely very little wind, just a slight breeze, just enough to have the dust flow a little bit. But it's amazing looking up here as you get closer to the tree line. Imagine being Haynes, the mail carrier, and having to deliver mail between a couple of these communities in the middle of December, back in the 1880s, 1870s. We're entering into a wider section of the ridge, which is kind of an open saddle area. The trees are a little bit lower. I think the fire came through here probably about 30 years ago, so there's very little sign of it other than quite a few dead trees still left over. More than 150 years ago, these mountains witnessed events that remain only partially explained even today. But this is just the wide saddle just before the final climb up to the summit of this trail. Looking across these mountains today, it's easy to forget how isolated this country once was. In the late 1800s, there were no GPS units, no weather forecast, no quick rescue. A wrong decision or the wrong encounter could prove fatal. Okay, we're coming up on the final approach to the summit of this trail, which stops just shy of Deadmans Pass. You can hike across Deadmans Pass, but you can only drive up to the top of the summit here before the pass. As we get up to the top here, notice how much more narrow the top of the ridge is. It's literally only about 30 to 40 feet across at the top before it starts sloping down to the steep sides on either side of this ridge. Most people who cross these mountains today know nothing about the history behind the name of this pass. Yet the stories of Robert Hume, Farnsworth, the nameless prospectors, and the mail carrier Haynes remain woven into this landscape. Whether their deaths were acts of violence, accidents, or simply the harsh realities of frontier travel, Deadmans Pass continues to remind us that even the most beautiful places can hold very difficult stories.